We're back for our college basketball best bets here on Wednesday, November 5th. Trying to break through today with our college basketball best bets after back-to-back 2 and 3 days. We've been right there. We've been on the cusp. We're looking for a better day, though, here today on Wednesday. We've got a good amount of college basketball going today. I think the biggest game today is, I don't know, Indiana. Indiana's got a big one against Alabama&M. More on that later. Just a lot of, Power 4 schools, a lot of big-time schools playing smaller programs. We're not going to talk about, like, Creighton, South Dakota today, Georgia, Maryland, Eastern Shore. And, the game of the day, don't get me wrong, the Delta Devils of Mississippi Valley State taking on the Mississippi University for women. Yep, that game's happening today at 4 o'clock. You're not going to want to miss that game. We're not going to pick it because there's no odds for that game. But yes, a crazy matchup between the Mississippi University for women and the Delta Devils of Mississippi Valley State. Folks, before we get into the video, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below for some more daily college basketball best bets here on the channel. Later today, we're going to have our daily NBA best bets. We've been on fire with the NBA, so go make sure to check that out in a couple hours here on the channel. We've got our college football week 11 predictions posted as well on the channel. Over 4 hours of college football predictions, predicting every single game for the college football slate. So go check that out, linked in the description down below, along with our NFL Week 10 predictions. Again, all these videos in the description, along with our UFC Fight Night Boom Theme versus Brown predictions over on Greedo Plays MMA. Okay, on to the first of our 5 best bets today for college basketball, kicking things off with a matchup over in the Jersey Mike's Arena in Piscataway, New Jersey, as we've got the Rutgers Scarlet Knights taking on the Ryder Bronx. This will kick off the day at 3 o'clock over on the Big Ten Network, and the line for this one is 20.5. I'm going to side with Rutgers here to cover this large spread. Now, Ryder, we've actually, and this is where it's going to get easier for the rest of the season, especially when we get like 2 or 3 games to watch per team, but for the first time all year long, we get to pick a game where their team has actually played before. And that team, of course, would be the Ryder Bronx, as they played on Monday over in Virginia against the Cavaliers, losing 53-87. But now we kind of get an idea of what each team is. Of course, Rutgers is making their season debut. This is a team that has been heavily impacted by the NBA draft. Obviously, Dylan Harper gets picked in the top 5 to go to, actually the number 2 pick to go to the San Antonio Spurs. Ace Bailey's the 3rd, 4th, 5th pick. He's in the top 5. Goes to the Utah Jazz. So right away, you lose your 2 best players who, yes, were both true freshmen last year, but you lose both of those guys to the NBA draft. You lose a couple other seniors as well. I know they were very freshman heavy last year, and don't get me wrong, I think Rutgers is doing a very good job recruiting. They get a lot of high school talent. They got some transfers from Kansas State, a couple mid-majors as well. It's a team that's kind of building a core, again, though they literally had Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey last season, and they couldn't make the tournament. Now, I get it. Last year, they were starting 4 freshmen and 1 senior, so that's difficult. But yes, you take away Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey, obviously that's going to make an impact on that team. So we look at what Rutgers will be starting this year. I think they're going to be starting Tariq Francis at the 1. He's a transfer from the New Jersey Institute of Technology. At the 2 guard, I think it's going to be Darren Buchanan, who had a pretty good year last year for the George Washington Revolutionaries. Dylan Grant returns. He was a starter last year as a freshman. He's now going to be you're still playing the 3. I think Bay Falls is going to be starting at the 4. He's a K-State transfer. And then they have their center, Manny Ogbole, starting at the 5 spot for them. So you're getting some returning guys in this team. And again, you have a lot of transfer players, which is fine. You have a little more just all-around college experience on this team now, which again, it sucks that Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey are no longer around, but you knew that was going to happen. You do get some, college basketball experience. Now, is Rutgers going to be able to survive in the Big Ten this year? I don't think so. If they struggled with those guys last year, they got second round in the Big Ten tournament. No, they lost to USC in the first round. Yeah, they barely qualified for the Big Ten tourney and then got eliminated in the first round. His team was below average last year in the Big Ten, and I don't think it's going to go much better for them this year either. Now, in this specific spot, though, I know I probably shouldn't have been this negative on Rutgers, because now I'm going to tell you they're going to cover 21 points or 20.5 points. I watched the Ryder Bronx, and what I've seen out of the Bronx game against Virginia, there's nothing to write home about. The one guy who impressed, I think, is Flash Burden. He's a sophomore from Pennsylvania, from Philadelphia, played with Ryder last season, put up 17 points and 6 boards in their loss to the Cavaliers. Other than that, though, Virginia just literally had their way on the Ryder Bronx. It really took over the game in the second half. Virginia goes into halftime up by 10 points, 42-32, and Virginia ultimately pulls away, winning the game 87-53. 33. If Ryder's struggling at Virginia, I think they're going to struggle at Rutgers too. Now, Virginia was a 26.5 point favorite in the Ryder game. I believe Rutgers isn't as good as Virginia. I think Virginia is the slightly better team. That doesn't really matter, though. Again, Virginia was able to go out there and beat Ryder by 40 plus points. 30 plus points. My goodness, math is hard sometimes. They beat him by 34, though. I think Rutgers should be able to beat this team by 21. Again, no Ace Bailey, no Dylan Harper. Yes, you are losing talent going into the season, but I think there has been some good moves made for this team in the portal wise. Like I like the Darren Buchanan move. Buchanan was a pretty good player last year for the Revolutionaries. Had his moments. Didn't play all that well in the NIT, if I can remember correctly, the College Basketball Crown. But this is a guy who averaged 15 points in his freshman season, kind of took a step back in his junior or sophomore year, but he's now playing big-time basketball at Rutgers, and he should be in line to get starts for the Scarlet Knights as well. This is a guy, again, from Washington, D.C., played at, obviously, a local university in George Washington. Now he's getting to start at Rutgers in the Big Ten. Big opportunity for him. Again, you get the transfer out of the New Jersey Institute of Technology. Of course, that's going to be the starting one guard in Tariq Francis. I think it's a good move. Francis played pretty well, obviously, last year at NJIT. Averaged 20 points a game, was putting up easy 30 point per game nights, or close to 30 points per game nights. It's a good move, I think. Again, how will that translate to the Big Ten? I don't know, but they're playing Ryder here, so I think these, again, mid-major guys will have a lot of success in the spot. I'm going to be going with the Rutgers Scarlet Knights to win and cover 20.5 points against the Ryder Bronx. On to our second best bet of the video. We move to Assembly Hall for the Hoosiers, as Indiana's at home against Alabama&M. Okay, so this is nothing against Mike Woodson, but I feel like I can finally get behind this Indiana team. And it's not because I disliked Woodson. It was time for him to retire or step away from the team, whatever you want to call it, okay? Indiana was in great need of just not a rebuild, but just retooling what they have. Because obviously what Curt Cignetti and, the football program has done, Curtis Rourke, Fernando Mendoza, obviously, the two big quarterbacks, obviously, at the school. I know Rourke's on the Niners now, but you get what I mean, right? Indiana has retooled their football program, and now they're a powerhouse, and, Bloomington is the new Bama. Let's see if they can get it done in terms of a hoops perspective. Now, Indiana's losing a lot of guys. At the same time, they brought in about 13 players. I'm not joking. They are taking a little bit of the Cignetti approach of we are going to bring in a bunch of guys from the mid-major level. We're going to take a lot of good mid-major players, again, very similar to what Cignetti did with JMU and other group of 5 schools, and we're just going to figure it out right now by, again, bringing in a bunch of guys. Because all those names that you remember from those Indiana teams over the last couple years and the failed Mike Woodson years, everybody's gone, okay? They got Omar Ballo graduated. Obviously, he was their center last year. He was the replacement for Khalil Ware. Anthony Leal graduated. Trey Galloway finally got a job and is no longer playing college basketball. No, I said last year I was going to stop hating on Trey Galloway. It's a joke. I think Galloway was great at times last. Actually, no, Galloway was very good second half of the year last year. Gabe Cupps also transferred. He's at Ohio State now. Additionally, Malik Renault, Miles Rice, Mackenzie Mbako, all these guys left. They lost a couple of their younger players as well. They lost a lot of pieces. Why? Because they just brought in a completely new team. I mean, it is a completely retooled lineup. I mean, this is nowhere near, you can't even talk about last year's Indiana team because there's nothing to talk about. It is a completely new squad that they brought in. I mean, and the biggest player that Indiana brought in this year is by far Tucker DeVries. He is a senior from West Virginia, played really good basketball last year. Obviously, his father, Darian DeVries, is the head coach now of West Virginia, so, it makes sense. They got some good talent, and this is the launching point. Because, again, they are going to be firmly, in my opinion, based around DeVries. DeVries was the guy last year for WVU. Put up some big numbers for the Mountaineers last year before he got injured in December. This guy averaged 15 points a game before the injury last year. He will now be leading the charge this season for the Hoosiers. And is this going to be a long process? I believe so. But I think this is the step in the right direction. I think there's a chance Indiana's a tournament team this year. No, I think they should be a tournament team because, guys, they were like 2 wins away from getting into the tournament last year. They were right they were on the brink of getting getting in. They could have gone to the NIT if they wanted it, but of course Indiana declined because we're too good for the NIT. It's whatever. But as we're looking at this lineup, though, I believe they're going to be starting Connor Enright at the 1. He played big minutes at DePaul last year. Started quite a bit of games. Started every game he played last year for DePaul. Obviously, DePaul and Big East basketball sometimes can get tricky. Enright's a former Drake Bulldog. I think he'll be fine at the 1 spot. I'm not too concerned about that. At the 2, they're starting Lamar Wilkinson, I believe. He's, a big player down in the CUSA. Averaged 20.5 points a game last year in Sam Houston. Again, this is the mindset that Indiana's taking. They saw it work for their football team. They're going to now go out and get mid-major superstars. That's what Lamar Wilkinson was last year at Sam Houston and has been at Sam Houston. He'll be starting at the 2 spot. Obviously, Tucker DeVries will be starting at the 4. Again, that's going to be the player to watch. There's not a lot of power 4 and big-time basketball that's been played so far on this team. Tucker DeVries is a guy that you can look at. I love the Josh Harris move. Harris was very good last year at North Florida, averaged 14 points a game. He's going to be starting at the 4 spot. And then I believe it's going to be, it has to be Reed Bailey at the 5. This is a player who averaged 19 points a game last season at Davidson. He was the main guy last year for that team. He's now going to be playing in Indiana. So you can just get a lot of mid-major guys who played really well. Bench isn't that bad either. You get, again, a bunch of transfers. You got another, Josiah Miles also from North Florida. You get Nick Dorn from Elon. There's players, man. There are players. I think Indiana's going to blow out Alabama&M. This is a new era in Hoosiers basketball, and they need to get this out. They need to get this on the right track immediately. And it's pretty cool that they get to play a SWAC team. If you've watched college basketball, the SWAC and the MEAC are usually at the bottom of the barrel every single year. It's the truth. Alabama&M had their moments last season, but they were really just one of the worst teams in the SWAC. And, there were some really bad teams in the SWAC, don't get me wrong. Obviously, you have the Arkansas Pine Bluffs of the world and the Mississippi Valley States. Obviously, again, the Delta Devils are playing the Mississippi University for Women today. Alabama&M's pretty bad. They got blown out last year to Georgia by 50 points. Peyton Daniels is going to be their best player, I believe. Scored 18 points in their first game against a D2 school. He went to Vandy, was he? He was a Vandy player, went to Jack State. James Graham was a bench player for Buffalo, Maryland back in 2020, Missouri State. He's now starting for Alabama&M as a junior. Expect him to make a little bit of an impact, but it's a new era in Indiana basketball. It's the DeVries dynasty. We got the Men dynasty in football, the DeVries dynasty now in basketball. Tucker DeVries and his father are going to go out and win this basketball game, and I believe absolutely dismantle Alabama&M. Again, they need to get this thing off to the right foot. Alabama&M went to Athens last year and lost by 50. I think they can go to Bloomington and lose by 27. So give me the Hoosiers. All right, Purdue, was 1 point off they were 1 point off in a late game run yesterday against Evansville for covering. I hope Indiana does it, and maybe we can win in Mackey this year, right? Maybe? No? Okay. Give me the Hoosiers minus 26.5. Next up, we go to our third best bet of the video. Let's go to the Save Mart Center in Fresno, California, as we've got the Fresno State Bulldogs at home taking on South Carolina Upstate. The Spartans of SCU Upstate, or SC Upstate to be clear. Now, Fresno State, coming off of a gambling scandal last season. They're back, all right? Multiple players on that team last season got banned from playing collegiate sports in the NCAA. Fresno's kind of retooled the roster a little bit. Kind of. They brought back some guys like Zion Collins, who was a decent player for them last season, started every single game, scored 12.5 points. That's big time. You brought in some other players as well, but most notably, I'd say Jake Heiderbreder, who put up big numbers at Air Force, tried to give it a go in the ACC at Clemson, didn't see any success. He's now moved over to Fresno, the 2-guard has, for his senior year, dropped 19 points in their first game. And sure, again, Fresno played Fresno Pacific in their first game, I think it was. Yes, Fresno Pacific in their first game. That's really nothing to write home about. Let's see how good the Bulldogs really are here. Now, again, am I expecting Fresno to be an elite team in the Mountain West this season? Absolutely not. I think they're going to be bottom of the barrel of the Mountain West, if I'm being honest with you. It's going to be them, and it's going to be the Air Force like it was last season, probably. But again, we will see about that. Anyways, though, they're taking on SC Upstate, a team from the Big South, a team in the Big South that I'm not impressed by at all. They were not good last season. I don't expect them to be that good this year either. I look at SEU Upstate, first game of the season, go to Riverside, not to the cesspool. Trust me, the cesspool will be back at some point this year, if you watched last year. But no, they went to the other school over in that city called Riverside, California. SEU Upstate goes on the road and plays Cal Baptist. They lose the game 87-75. It's kind of a realistic score that we can get here tonight. I think Fresno should be able to score. You know, Upstate does score quite a bit. They're led in points by Kamari Gregory. He played 35 minutes and scored 22. Upstate's down early. They try to make their pushes throughout the course of the second half, but ultimately the Lancers win that game for Cal Baptist. Fresno should be able to score. They dropped 88 in the game against Fresno Pacific. And again, it's a little hard to gauge what Fresno is going to be in this game because of, new roster, obviously brings some guys back, but let's say it, a controversial 2024-2025 for the Fresno State Bulldogs and not a good season. I mean, you had guys betting on their own under player props for this program, which is brutal, and, in this day and age with Chauncey Billups, Terry Rozier, hell, Isaac Dolgarian from the UFC, we're getting all these guys, trying to bet on themselves. Yeah, it is what it is. They just want to be in on the game, I guess. Anyways, after a controversial year last year, I think Fresno, I don't know if they're going to be that much better, but I think they can beat South Carolina Upstate by double digits. Guys, SEU Upstate has not been a good team in the Big South last season. I know, again, there's not the most roster turnover, but SEU Upstate last year was a very bad team. They went 6-26, did not win any non-con games except for West Carolina. I don't expect them to play a competitive game at Fresno. They did play some competitive non-con games last year, don't get me wrong. They played the UNC Wilmington Seahawks, played them close. They played Wake Forest close last year in Winston-Salem. They're not as good of a team now as they were last season, and I expect Fresno to really dominate this basketball game. Not like they're going to have the best home court advantage at the Save Mart Center, just because nobody really goes to those games, and there's the capacity is like 16,000 people, 13,000 people, but it's okay. I think Fresno's going to get it. Also, again, SEU Upstate's been on this road trip already. I mean, they were out in Riverside on Monday night. They returned home on Saturday for a matchup against Division II Southern Virginia before a matchup later in the week against Bob Jones. See, this is why college basketball is great. A team is going to go play Bob Jones next week. What is going on? I'm going to go with Fresno State minus 9.5. At home, they should be completely fine here. I just saw SU Upstate go to Cal Baptist and lose. I think Fresno State's better than the wax Cal Baptist, so I think the Bulldogs should be fine here. I'm going with Fresno State minus 9.5 against South Carolina Upstate. On to our next game, and we move to a matchup here in Davis, California, to be exact, as we've got the UC Davis Aggies hosting the North Dakota State Bison. I think this is phenomenal value. The line is plus 2.5 or minus 2.5 on either side, wherever you want to look at it. There's no value in that. Well, there is. But the better value is plus 135 for the North Dakota State Bison. Believe you me. This is a team that had Oregon State up against the ropes. And is Oregon State, anywhere close to where they once were? Not really, okay? They are a West Coast team for now until the Pac-2, 12, 10, whatever they're going to call it, is coming back next season. But North Dakota State goes on the road and goes down to the wire against Oregon State, losing the game by 2 points. It's a game-winning layup at the end of the game that wins it for the Beavs. I like North Dakota State quite a bit. This is a team last year that came to the West Coast and played really good basketball. I was in attendance for the North Dakota State Bison against Santa Clara at the Levy Center, and NDSU, as 14.5-point dogs, went into Santa Clara and beat the Broncos. This is a team that plays well on the road, and they play well on the West Coast. And they returned a player, Noah Federson, who was one of their starters last season. They do lose a bunch of starters to graduation, don't get me wrong. Their two leading scorers from last season have both graduated, if I'm not mistaken. But, and that would be, of course, Jackson Money and Jakari White. I'm pretty sure Jackson Money graduated, right? Yeah, Jackson Money graduated. Jakari White definitely graduated as well. Jakari White's at Virginia. Oh, my goodness. Whoops. Anyways, I thought Jakari White graduated. That's something. Yeah, he's a bench player in Virginia now. More you know. Anyways, though, Jackson Money was their number one guy. Again, Jakari White played good minutes last year for them too. I was actually more impressed watching live Jakari White. I could have sworn that guy was a senior last year. Did he get another year? I think he had to, because I'm like pretty certain he was a senior. It's fine. Good on Jakari White. We'll see him later in the year with Virginia. Anyways, though, you look at NDSU, they added Markai Strickland, who's probably going to replace, again, Jackson Money / Jakari White for this team. This is a player who played at Western Michigan last year, averaged 11.5 points a game, started his collegiate career over with the Billikens of St. Louis, but again went to WMU and posted good numbers for WMU in his second year there. It's his senior year now. He's playing in Fargo for NDSU, and he dropped 17 points in their first game in 28 minutes. Again, they played a very ultra-competitive game against the Beavs of Oregon State, and they go on the road now to take on the UC Davis Aggies, a team that played Menlo. This has to be Menlo College, right? The Menlo Oaks. I'm pretty sure it's Menlo College. Is this Menlo College? The Menlo. Yeah, okay, Menlo College. Yeah, they went and played Menlo week 1, or Menlo came to Davis and played them in their first game. I mean, pretty much everything you'd expect in that game. UC Davis dominates a Division II school. Menlo actually might be D3. No, I think they have to be D2. UC Davis completely beats up on them. Davis had a weird year last year, and I try to watch as much Big West basketball as I can, and personally, it's my favorite mid-major conference to watch, other than maybe the Summit, but I'd argue the Big West is more fun. UCD loses their best player, by far their best player, Ty Johnson. Johnson graduated. He was a 22.5 points per game scorer for this team last season, did massive stuff for that squad, kept them competitive in a bunch of games last year, won them a lot of games. But the thing that I remember about Davis the most is they completely, had a really good start to the year in the Big West, beat some decent teams last year. In all fairness, didn't have to play the elite squads right away and lost some of the really good squads early in their Big West season last year. I'm talking about Northridge. I guess the cesspool is pretty good at times last season. They could never beat UCI, who was obviously the best team. Well, actually, UCSD was better, but UCI and UCSD, the two best squads over there. Regardless, UCD started their Big West play 9-5 last year, and they were pretty hot early. They actually won a game against UCR in Davis, and they then proceeded to lose 8 consecutive games to end the season. They went on to the Big West tournament and lost to Cal Poly, a Mustangs team that really caught fire in the Big West tournament. They actually eliminated UCR, that cesspool over in Las Vegas. But Davis really fell off a cliff as that season went on, and now again you have to replace your main scorer, Ty Johnson, with somebody else. It might be Niels Cooper. In terms of what they did in the Menlo game, it was a lot of Cooper shooting the basketball and attacking and finding ways. Isaiah Chappell took a lot of shots, but he came off the bench. I don't expect him to play the biggest minutes in a game like this. We'll see, though. Again, you have a team that's really trying to replace a guy in Ty Johnson, and a lot of Big West schools had this last year, don't get me wrong. And that's kind of how the Big West plays sometimes. It is and that's a lot of mid-majors in all fairness, but one very ball-dominant guy who can put up a bunch of shots, and that's exactly what Ty Johnson was for the Aggies last season. Who do they replace that with now? Maybe that's Niels Cooper. I don't know. I like NDSU quite a bit. I really do. I think Markai Strickland's going to be huge for them this year. I like Feddersen returning. It's a guy who has started pretty much every single game he's ever played for the Bison. And that's about, 58 total starts in 2 seasons for Noah Feddersen. I like the Bison quite a bit. Again, they were very good last year on the road, at least in their non-con schedule. Played competitive games non-con-wise. Beat Santa Clara last year in overtime in their non-conference schedule. And they just went out and almost beat Oregon State, losing to them by only 2 points. I love the Bison here in this spot. I think they actually are a better team than Davis. I get it. Oh, they're on the road. The travel and being on the road seemingly has not affected the Bison all that much. And I think they're going to walk into Davis and win the game outright. You can keep your points because we're taking plus 135 for the North Dakota State Bison to beat UC Davis on the road. On to our final best bet of the video. We go to the final game of the night from Los Angeles, California. We've got the Eastern Washington Eagles taking on Loyola Marymount, LMU versus EWU. Kind of hard to gauge these two teams so far, and I'll explain why. Eastern Washington's first game, they go to UCLA, number 12 ranked UCLA, and they play a really competitive game. They go into halftime losing. In that entire second half, it's really EWU trying to catch up. UCLA has a lead pretty much that entire, no, they do have the lead the entire the second half. Again, Eastern Washington's making pushes, but UCLA's really up by 10 points for that entire second half until a very late game push by Eastern Washington. The final score is 80-74. They were, again, really down 10 points the entire half, but good on the Eagles, right? They cut that lead at the very end. UCLA is very talented, and even, again, regardless if they were really going to lose the game by 10 points or whatnot, and they scored twice in the very closing seconds of the game, being that competitive against a team I believe that's going to be really good this year in UCLA, that's something. Again, we were high on UCLA a lot last season, and the fact they added a guy who I believe last season was the best point guard in college basketball. Yes, I know Braden Smith exists. I believe Donovan Dent's the best point guard in college basketball, and I think we saw that again in the Eastern Washington game, and just wait till he gets to play Big Ten basketball this season. He's going to be very good and very effective. Yes, I believe he's better than Braden Smith. Should have won the Bob Cousy Award last year. Just wait. Right, Donovan Dent was a monster last year with the Lobos. He's going to be very good at UCLA, and yet Eastern Washington only lost the game by 6. This is a team that still has Tyler Bilodeau, who's big for them, Sky Clark. No longer do they have a Dai Mara. Mara's at Michigan. He's going to be... Is he starting at Michigan? He's coming off the bench. I'm not sure. I need to tap into Michigan basketball. I believe... Yeah, Mara's coming off the bench because they're going to be starting Illinois transfer, I believe, Morez Johnson. I think. Obviously, Yaxel Lindenberg from UAB is the other forward, or is the other big. Anyways, though, I'm going to take that at Eastern Washington. Playing that competitively, and I get it. You were losing pretty much from start to finish. But staying in the game and being competitive in the game, and a guy I like, wasn't a fan of this team last year. I'll never be a fan. I'll never be a fan of that place. But Isaiah Moses, coming from that cesspool in UC Riverside, he has seen greener pastures now. He's playing in Eastern Washington. This was a guy who started some games for UCR last year. They fiddled with their lineup quite a bit because their best player at UCR by far was Barrington Hargress, who played the 1 but also could play the 2. So they would, sometimes they would go and they would start Moses with Hargress, but it was kind of hard to because Hargress is a 6'1" point guard who is now at Colorado, who is going to play big minutes this year for the Buffaloes. I don't know if that success he had at UCR is going to translate to the Buffs this season, but again, I guess time will only tell. But Isaiah Moses leaves UCR to go to Eastern Washington, a place where he's probably going to be the number 1 option. You're going to see Isaiah Moses continue to take a lot of shots, and I'm okay with that. I think, again, he was good in spots for them last year. He got overshined all the time by Barrington Hargress because Hargress would actually play 38 minutes a night, and he would take every big-time shot. He was able to, a very good driver, and his shots depended on the night. But I like, again, Isaiah Moses playing at Eastern Washington. I look at their opponents in Loyola Marymount. Again, how do I gauge this team? They beat the Lincoln University Oaklanders in their first game. Okay, Lincoln University is a new school, I believe, right? They came to be in, or is it just their football program's new? I'm pretty sure they've only been a school for 4 years, I believe. Because I had a good friend get offered at Lincoln University. And their whole selling, their whole selling point to him was, we're a new school. He got recruited out of high school to go to Lincoln University. And their whole selling point to him was, we're a new school, but you can make your own legacy here. Yeah, I just saw Lincoln University football lost 90-0 to Idaho State this season. So are they trying to play D2? I could have sworn at the time, though, they were a D3 school. Are they completely independent? Anyways, that's the victory LMU has, is against a school that is just started 4 years ago. And obviously LMU dominates. They don't really need to play their starters much. Aaron McBride leads the scoring with 20 points. The junior out of Corona, California was kind of a starter for them last year. Started about half of their games. Was more of a defensive player. Scores 20 points in their first game. I think we can put absolutely nothing into that game. Yes, they beat Lincoln University 137-54. Again, that's a new school. I just saw Eastern Washington go on the road and play a very competitive game against UCLA. And now they're being given 7.5 points here at LMU. They've gotten to stay in Los Angeles. They've already played the better team in LA. Who's to say they can't play a competitive game at LMU? Guys, again, they cover this line against UCLA. Who's to say they're not going to cover this against LMU? I'm going to go with the Eastern Washington Eagles here. A team that was not that bad last year. They had their moments in the Big Sky. I'm going to take Eastern Washington here. Actually, no, they were pretty bad, weren't they? They had their moments. I'm going to take EMU to win this game. Again, they're a retooled lineup. I like EMU here to go on the road and cover 7.5 here against the West Coast's own in the Loyola Marymount Lions. Again, plus 7.5 for the Eagles. Folks, that'll do it for our college basketball best bets here on November 5th. If you haven't yet, though, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below for more. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy the video. Make sure to comment if you do disagree with any of the picks. Folks, thank y'all for watching, and Mamba forever.